Hey folks, thanks for stopping by. This video is going to be a little bit different than the kind of project videos that I've done in the past, in that I thought it was time to do a shop tour video. At the time of filming this, it's the end of 2022. It's late in the evening, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting on the past year, and I think that's probably a pretty common thing for most people. But I've also been doing some reflecting on where I want this channel to go moving forward. And I've had a lot of fun making these videos. I've learned a lot, both about how to create and put out videos and content, and it's also, I feel, made me a better woodworker because I have to explain what I'm doing, and I have to be cognizant and think about angles and shots and how to present something. And I've always said, if you want to get really good at something, then try and teach it. So with that in mind, I'm going to try and be a little more active on this channel to continue to add to the YouTube environment that I've benefited so much from. I can't wait to see how this coming year turns out. So with that in mind, I'll start the shop tour video. This won't be a terribly long one. I'm going to try and do the tour in one take, and I hope you get a lot out of it, and I hope you come back and check us out on the next one. All right, so moving into the front door, the first thing that we would see, I've got one of my favorite tools in the shop, a battery-powered leaf blower, which makes it amazing during cleanup times to just open up the door and blow all the dust out. And also here I share a little space with my 2-year-old, who has her workbench here, some Legos and whatever projects she's working on here on her big old Stanley bench. Got a deep freezer and a refrigerator that I share a little space with, but other than that, the space is pretty much mine. My shop is a little over 500 square feet. Up here, as I come in, I've got my panel box and just a few finishes and things like that I keep up there. Moving right along this left-hand side wall as you come in, this is probably the area of the shop that gets the least amount of time on video. Because it's ugly, frankly. I use it mostly for storage. I have my planer set up over here now, but it's not terribly great to look at, especially on camera, so I don't show a lot of it. But moving right along here, we've got my wood rack, which is nothing more than, I think it's a $60 little storage rack from Lowe's that at the time of filming this, at least, it would have been difficult for me to buy the materials, especially lumber, to build something as sturdy and as quick to knock together as this was for any cheaper than what I paid. So I've got a Keurig here whenever I want coffee, and the star of my shop is this 240 volt heater and AC unit that keeps me warm and cool all year long. Got a couple of sawhorses here, a bunch of sheet goods and other junk that just kind of piles up in this corner. Again, this is probably the least organized area of the shop. I got my CD player up there so I can Bluetooth my phone to it, and some older files, and the first set of chisels that I started with. One of my first tools was this Skill brand bandsaw, and it's terrible. If I'm being honest, I don't use it very much anymore, but I still keep it on hand. I've got my planer set up on a mobile cart with a little rigid shop vac hooked to it, and this is definitely less than ideal. I have to empty the shop vac out quite a bit if I'm doing anything bigger than a cutting board, frankly. But it's cheap, and for what I'm using it for, it works just fine. I've got my Stanley Workmate here, which is a collapsible bench. I've kind of made it the star of one of my flattening videos that I'll link to down in the description. And when it's up, it acts as a vise and a mobile workbench and a set of sawhorses all in one. So it's quite convenient. Got my Christmas tree. My wife has an early January birthday, so we always leave our decorations up until just after the first of the year. So it'll be coming down soon, and I'll reclaim a little bit of this space. And you'll see boxes and other things throughout the shop as I move along. And part of the reason for that is we use this space for wrapping presents in addition to making presents. So yeah, that's why all the boxes, and you might see wrapping paper and paraphernalia about too. So I've got some templates in the back there, and up above, that light's probably a little tough to see by. I've also got some little containers and things that I mix finishes and whatnot in, some bandsaw blades, and we start moving into the sort of the work area proper. I've got a little pegboard here with just some basic hand tools, pretty common stuff. And the newest furniture addition to my shop, I took a cabinet that I had previously had, and the slabs that I was flattening in my aforementioned video featuring the workmate turned out here. This is supposed to be a mortising bench. It sits quite a bit higher than my traditional hand tool working bench, just off to the right here, that we'll get to in a second. And so it makes it great if I need to chop out a mortise, do a little bit of sawing. It's not great for hand planing. It's a little bit too high. If I remember right, it sits at 42.5 inches tall, so that's quite tall for a workbench. I find that more than anything, I'll use it as a place to put small projects that have finish on them, oil finishes that are drying. I'll just leave them up here because obviously I don't mind. These are basically just rough slabs that I flattened. I don't mind if finish gets on them. I can easily knock it back down to a clean surface because of the small surface area. The top, underneath, I keep some paints. It's where I keep all my shop towels. I won't dig into all the drawers and cabinets there, but Dremel tool, a wood burning kit, things like that. Just odds and ends that I don't really have a home for. They live right there. Up above it, I've got a window that I installed this year, and that was definitely a great addition to get a little cross breeze in here. Help with some fresh air. Moving right along, I've got my my pallet wood accent walls, just a little something to break up the space. You might notice the color of the hardboard to the left of the accent wall does not match the color of the hardboard to the right of the accent wall. And I'm fairly utilitarian when it comes to my shop. I'm not going to go out and try and match hardboard and travel and spend bunches of gas and time to make things perfectly match in a space like this. Woodworking is my hobby. It has made me money in the past, but it is definitely not my primary source of income, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a source of joy and entertainment more than it is a source of income. So, my hand tool woodworking bench, maybe I'll do a tour of this in an upcoming video. If you'd like to see that, let me know down in the comments. My whiteboard, which I have featured on another video, my handsaw collection, and most of these I picked them up for like $10 for the whole set, for the majority of these, and I don't use them. I just like the way they look. Got everything I need here on my little hand tool rack. Chisels and squares and pliers and marking gauges and marking tools and block planes. I do have a tool well back here that catches all my junk, so I occasionally have to clean it out. But again, if you guys would like to see a workbench tour, that could certainly come in the future. Moving along, I've got my hand plane till. Again, I have a video on that, and I will link that in the description as well. A little bit of clamp storage over here in the corner. Some joinery planes and just a couple of a transitional plane and an old aluminum plane up top. Some bit and braces that don't do anything but look good. Another hand tool wall over here. An example of burned American flag that I used to make. These still sell. I used to make these and sell them. They don't sell like they used to. I feel like the market flooded out a little bit. This one was, I don't remember what went wrong with this one, but it was not good to sell for some reason. I messed something up on it, and so rather than scrap it, I just hung it up here in the shop. Also over in this corner, I keep my sharpening station. These are float glass with 3M adhesive-backed, I believe it's automotive sandpaper, going from 200 grit all the way up to 60,000. So in combination with a simple jig, it gives me the degrees for either a chisel or a plane, and this is nothing but some plywood cut down and measured. And then I'll butt the plane up, use a honing guide and a little bit of little bit of Windex, and we're in business. But that's how I sharpen all of my planes, and it works great. Hand saws, Japanese style, coping saw up there. Keep my tape right here. Keep all of my books and magazines that are out here in the shop right over here. One of my birthday presents this year was over 60 editions of Fine Woodworking magazine that my wife was able to find and secure for me. So those need a home. I'll probably be building a shelf for those. Hopefully that'll be a project video coming up soon. Here, underneath the roll-up door, I keep Scotch-Brite pads, steel wool. I keep my RZ mask and some of my other dust masks in here just to keep them clean, keep the dust off of them for the most part. Up here I keep glues and sort of non-toxic finishes. I make my own beeswax finish. Again, another shameless plug. I have a video on that I'll link down in the description as well. But it's beeswax and mineral oil. Basically, I'm making this butcher block oil that you can buy from the store for a heck of a lot cheaper. Some crafting supplies up here, hot glue, some dovetail practice that I keep up here in addition with an old wooden hand plane that's really just for show, some sandpaper and other odds and ends. I really need to organize this area. And again, back to the books. Here is a mineral oil bath for when I make cutting boards. I can just drop them in there, leave them for a few hours, bring them out, let them dry, and boom, they're done. The surface that they're sitting on is a built-in workbench. This was a really good addition before I had my assembly table that we'll be looking at shortly. It has a little cheap vise on it. It has a couple of drawers that I keep router accessories, and the one on the left has some snacks and some other odds and ends, and then I store wood down on the left under the vise, and some odds and ends that are a little too long there underneath in that big cubby. Got my miter saw station that, if you've watched this video or this channel for any amount of time, you have seen me use the miter saw station. It gets used on every project, especially when things are still in their rough form. Keep my pneumatic tools, all of my battery-powered tools. I do use Craftsman, no particular reason. I don't have a lot of brand loyalty, but it is nice to be able to share batteries. So you'll see a lot of red and black and a lot of yellow and black in this shop. Miter saw is hooked up to its own shop vac. Let's see, I keep all of my drill bits, router bits. I keep jigsaw blades, nails, screws, fasteners, everything's over here. And frankly, I need to make some kind of organizational system. Again, hopefully that'll be a project coming this upcoming year. Router, one of 3 routers that I have. I also keep a handful of tools underneath the miter station here. Incredibly dusty, but I keep a jigsaw, drill, a couple of old sanders. There's a palm router under there. Moving right along, I have kind of what I would call like the dirtiest workbench in the shop. I just keep odds and ends on it. It's got tools that I use not strictly for woodworking. It has all of my metalworking tools and files inside of it. I don't have a lot of that type of equipment out here in the shop. Most of my automotive type stuff lives, we have a carport as well as this garage, and a lot of it lives under the carport where it's closer to the cars, frankly. Got some wood storage leaned up against the wall here, right beside the door as you walk in. Sandpaper for my belt sander, and one thing I forgot to show underneath is I do keep a little bit of storage underneath. Another one of these workmate type benches, but it's just the tabletop model, and it's definitely not my favorite. I keep some hoses and some other dust collection type paraphernalia under that bench as well. Scrap wood trash can, some boxes from Christmas, and this is my sanding bench. This originally used to live in the corner where the Christmas tree was that I had showed earlier. It wasn't a good fit there. Things would just get dusty and dirty over in that corner, and it was really hard to just blow out. So now having it over here next to the garage door that you see in the background, it makes it great. I can just roll the door up and blow everything down with the leaf blower. So I've got a 4x36 belt sander with, I believe it's a 5-inch disc sander. I don't really use the disc sander that much. I do have it mounted to the bench so that it doesn't walk around. Just a little Irwin vise here that I picked up from the Blue Big Box store. I'll use it if I'm restoring an old tool, a screwdriver, or a chisel. I can chuck it up over here and keep all the fragments out of the rest of the shop. Do the majority of my sanding over here. I have one of these undercarpet type pads. Keeps me from scratching. I leave my little mouse sander over here with a variety of sandpaper. Got another trim router under there. Have my version of a router table. I have no reason to have a super elaborate one. I'm not doing stop dados or anything like that with the router, but I usually leave a round over bit on the old Craftsman router. Just raise it up and round stuff over. That's just my kind of standard trash bag. Not much to see there. I have my jet. I believe this is the JWBS 10, I think is the model number on this. It's the 10-inch older model jet bandsaw. It's what replaced my skill, and I couldn't be happier with it. It's about a third more powerful than the skill was, and it's quieter and heavier and made out of metal and not plastic. So I couldn't be more happy with a small bandsaw. That will be the next tool that I likely upgrade. Will be taking this and turning it into a 16-incher, hopefully. At the heart of my shop lies my assembly table. I've got my table saw set up here. It's just a small 8 1/4 inch DeWalt contractor saw. It works great. I can't recommend it enough. I think it's like $3.99 when it's on sale, and you're getting a heck of a lot of saw in such a small package. I have it hooked up to just a Bauer shop vac. I have a homemade air purifier, air filter, I don't know what you want to call it. It's a fan. It pulls air through a couple furnace filters, and it helps keep the air in here clean, and it works great. I leave a dado sled on what is an old Cobalt table saw. This saw wasn't great. It's what I got started on. It worked okay. I was constantly having to fidget with it, and the fence tore up just a couple years after getting it. So once I replaced it with the DeWalt, I just threw a dado blade in there, and that's where it will probably end its life, just as a dado saw. Have a Craftsman air compressor under here. I keep some shelving with some more clamps, nitrile gloves, things like that underneath the bench. A couple other odds and ends, a belt sander, some shop towels, just disposables and whatnot. Some more clamp storage here underneath the assembly table, and finally my daughter's other workstation. She has her workbench over by the deep freezer as you walk in. And then she also works over here with me if I'm not using the table saw. Oftentimes she's up here in this chair, which I have just clamped really tightly so that she can climb up here and work and hang out with me. I love having her in the shop. That seems to be pretty common amongst most parents. When their kids want to come in the shop with them, they couldn't be happier. So I'm happy to carve out a little space for her to be out here and hopefully foster that addiction. Here's the table itself. My assembly table is a 4x8 sheet of pine plywood with 2x6 L-style legs. It's big and heavy. It's not perfectly flat. This was all reclaimed lumber. The majority of the work fixtures here in my shop were made out of reclaimed lumber or just scraps or offcuts from other projects that I've done. So this is not what I use as a flat surface. This is usually just what I use as, I call it, a dirty work surface. When things just need somewhere to sit while I'm gluing them up, I'll pull out a piece of plywood if it needs to be dead flat and lay them on top of that, or I'll usually set them on top of my hand tool workbench over here, or my mortising bench just right there beside of it if it's a little bit smaller. This is a lot of ways the heart of my shop. It's just a big old table, and it gives me room to think and spread out while I'm doing my projects. And I think in the future, when I upgrade to a larger table saw, I'll probably pull the Cobalt dado saw out of there, probably out of the shop completely. Maybe upgrade to a larger floor standing table saw, maybe a hybrid. I don't think I'll go with another contractor, but maybe a hybrid style saw, and I'll probably shorten this up a couple of feet just to give me a little more space in here. That's pretty much it for the shop. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a well-insulated space. I have insulation on the garage door. You can see where I've been experimenting with painting the pink insulation. Although my daughter loves it, pink is definitely not my color when it comes to the shop. The ceiling is also pink, but it doesn't really shine through too much. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. I hope this shop tour gives you a good idea of the type of space that I'm working in, the limitations that I have. I have a very realistic shop as far as the equipment is concerned. This has taken me years to just slowly accumulate this as a hobbyist who occasionally sells furniture pieces and housewares and things. So I don't have a super fancy shop full of super fancy tools, and I still make it work. And you can too, by golly. So thanks for stopping by. I hope you'll continue to join me as I make these videos throughout the year. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Happy New Year.